If you have been a part of this channel from over the last 2 to 3 years, then you know one of the things that pisses me off, that irritates me to no end, is this social justice warrior outrage culture that we have seen develop on both the left and the right. It's almost become a career for a lot of people. And if you've noticed, a lot of this has been perpetuated by mainstream on both the left and the right. And the unfortunate truth is a lot of people who think they are independent thinkers, a lot of people who feel like their visceral response is the appropriate response after considering all the facts, they're actually just following narratives that were created in order to turn people against one candidate or the other, one issue or another, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But before we get into all that, like the video. Like it. Let's see if we can get this video to 1,000 likes before the end of the day. And subscribe if you have not. And also check to make sure you're subscribed if you haven't. Because you know what we deal with here on YouTube. People get forcibly unsubscribed from the channel all the time. So hit that notification bell as well. So Bernie Sanders made some controversial border comments in Iowa. Now, your definition of controversial and my definition of controversial may differ greatly. I understand. That's okay. We can have disagreements. However, my definition of controversial usually, when we're talking about politics and what people get outraged by, is usually actually just common sense. Whenever I say, oh man, it's controversial, common sense is controversial in today's political climate. It's an unfortunate truth, but it's a truth nonetheless. And the comments that Bernie Sanders made, in my humble opinion, were merely commonsensical. Now, I'll let you listen to the comments and you be the judge.
If you were to have open borders in our society today, how would you deal with the social services connected with opening the borders, such as healthcare, medical care, and...
Who do you think is suggesting opening the borders?
Well, that you're an activist for opening for...
No, I'm not. I'm afraid you may be getting your information wrong. That is not my view.
Okay, I apologize. Thank you.
Okay. I think what we need is comprehensive immigration reform. That is not simply, you're quite right. If your point is you open the borders, my God, you know, there's a lot of poverty in this world, and you're going to have people from all over the world. And I don't think that's something that we can do at this point. Can't do it. So that is not my position.
All right. I know. Can you believe that Bernie Sanders acknowledged poverty and said that maybe we should maintain our sovereignty just like other countries want to maintain their sovereignty? I can't believe it either. It's almost as if borders serve a purpose, and they do. The problem with this, with the reaction that I've been seeing from people, is that I feel like they fundamentally misunderstand where Bernie Sanders is coming from. And I don't really know if they're doing this on purpose or if they're doing it on accident and they're just reacting, like I said. But Wink the Bernie bro, shout out to that guy. Go follow him on Twitter if you have not. It was actually his tweet that made me start looking into this more, where he said, sorry. And by the way, his Twitter handle is @the_Bernie_bro. He says, sorry to tell you guys, I agree with Bernie here on the substance. Most Bernie supporters are not totally for open borders. And I think I would have to agree with that. Just, you know, I interact with either directly or indirectly with thousands and thousands of people daily. Bernie supporters, Trump supporters, and, you know, progressives in general, neoliberals as well. And I've not seen a lot of Bernie supporters for quote unquote open borders. There are those to the left of me on this that will disagree, and you can voice why below. I'm always for hearing good faith arguments. Now let's see if any of these arguments have updated. It actually seems that everybody agrees with him. Yeah. And they said, and so one person brings up a good point, said that I think most people have a problem with the framing of the answer, although I don't think that the framing was terribly off. I think it was potentially the best answer he could give with the short amount of time that he was given in order to answer that person's question and make sure that other people had chances to ask questions as well. I don't think that's, I mean, that's why I guess I could see where the problem with the framing was, but at the same time, I'm just really, I don't even think the framing was that problematic because he didn't say anything that was true. Now, there have been people trying to compare these comments that he made to Trump's comments. That's the first problem that I have. It was an article, actually, and I wish I could remember the article. I read it in passing, and I've been trying to find it. I couldn't find it. But basically, they said that he sounds like the guy he's running against. He sounds like a Trump supporter or a Trumper or Trump himself. That's silly. Where did Bernie say there are rapists? When did Bernie say they're sending their worst? When did Bernie ever introduce a policy that would hinder immigration reform rather than help it? But once again, this is why we have to be careful with our visceral reactions, because I've seen this with Tulsi Gabbard as well, where mainstream will plant a narrative that seems to be a narrative that would either bolster the idea that a candidate isn't as left as they are portraying themselves to be, or it would give ammo to the right for the left being quote unquote hypocrites. And then it gives MSM, mainstream media, a topic to talk about for the next 24 to 48 hours without actually substantively addressing the issues. So that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to explain exactly why Bernie Sanders is 100% right and why he should be celebrated for giving a real answer. Remember how they were saying Amy Klobuchar isn't scared to tell people no. She's so dynamic and commanding. Look at her. She's so presidential. She tells people no. Nah, Bernie Sanders can tell people no too. Sometimes I agree with him, sometimes I don't. But here, I would agree with him. Here's why. Substantively, we have to address the problems that are causing mass immigration. Specifically, the problems that are causing mass immigration into Western states. There is a correlation that is almost certainly a causation. I think that anyone who understands foreign policy or international politics or geopolitics gets this, okay? We're not the only one that's having an immigration problem. Ours, believe it or not, is actually not as discussed as it should be. See, we focus all of our immigration conversations on Mexicans. That's not an exaggeration. I wish that was a trope, but it is not. That is literally what we focus on. Why? Because people like Trump have made it about Mexicans. And the truth of the matter is, mainstream on both sides have done a good job of doing the same. There are more than Mexican immigrants coming from Central and South America. We all are aware of this. But when I say that they focus on Mexicans, it's much easier to focus on that and codify the conversation as if we are only focused on what is happening in Mexico and what is causing the mass migration here. And then we say, oh, it's about jobs, instead of focusing on what is really causing mass migration from all of Central and South America. That would be regime change wars. That would be things like the Iran-Contra conflict. That would be like what we did in Honduras, what we did in Chile, what we did in Guatemala, what we've done in Brazil, what we've done. And there's a huge, like, for example, there's a huge spike in Brazilian immigration because we are constantly destroying their economy. We're the reason that Brazilian economy is the way it is today with the rampant inflation, up and down, interest rates and things like that, because they're our biggest competition. So, of course, we're going to take them out. How wouldn't we? We overthrow countries regularly. And so in some instances, like what you see in South America and Central America, they migrate. And some of them say it's for work. And that's what the narrative is. However, Fiorella from the network went to Tijuana and talked to a lot of these people who had migrated here. And this is part of the Honduran caravan. They weren't looking for work. They were trying to escape gangsterism, like gangsterism that is propped up by oligarchies. The same gangsterism we see in Venezuela that is propped up by American and Venezuelan oligarchies. Same thing in Honduras, same thing in Chile, and basically every country, including like Colombia, who actually has a U.S. supported regime in right now. We see that all over. So we see the South American side. We are in their countries causing problems. Guess where they go? They go right up to North America. Specifically, they go to the United States. Now, here's something that we don't ever talk about on the mainstream. I talk about on the show very, very regularly, but the mainstream doesn't talk about it. And until recently, this reality has been relatively innocuous. Our problems that are the problems that are being caused in the Middle East by us are also having residual effects. Syrian refugees we had to deal with. That was a whole debacle. I remember, what was it, 2014, 2015 was when the Syrian refugee debacle happened. And we got so focused on Syrian refugees, nobody asked, which is by design. Nobody asked, well, why are they coming here? Oh, it's a Syrian war, civil war thing, bombs. It's like, oh, so who's bombing? Oh, we don't know about all that. Sometimes they say it's Assad. Sometimes they say it's Assad. Sometimes they say it's ISIS. Sometimes they say it's rebels. Sometimes they say it's Russia. Just depends on who you ask that day. Okay, shouldn't we be asking a little bit more specifically so we can get a real answer? We also cause issues in Somalia, where our esteemed Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is from. If you never traveled there, you would never know that Somalian refugees are all over Minnesota. It's all these problems that people on the hyper alt-right will tell you, oh, refugees will come here and cause all these problems. It's not true. It's not true. Because they haven't caused any problems. If they have caused any problems, it's to a lesser degree than the people who were born and raised here that are considered quote unquote American. And you would also know if you lived in these other states like Vermont and New Hampshire and Wisconsin, refugees from Africa and the Middle East are all over in major hubs. I mean, the Minneapolis airport is literally like all Somalians and Ethiopians who work there. I'm not even exaggerating. I had the benefit of traveling and experiencing these things, so you get, and I've talked to a lot of people, obviously, but that quote unquote refugee crisis, quote unquote, came from imperialism. So what Bernie is suggesting, I'd imagine, and definitely what I'm suggesting, is that, and what Bernie said, that's why I don't disagree with him. There's poverty everywhere in this world, especially Central and South America. There's death and destruction everywhere in this world. But guess what? The unfortunate truth of the matter is, just like in Great Britain or the UK, where they tried to use refugee immigration as a false pretense for Brexit, they pretended like it was about economics, and I said it wasn't about economics. It was a xenophobic attempt that they never thought all the way through. So just like that, our refugee problems come from us. Great Britain is dealing with their refugee problems, a lot of it because of them wanting to team up with us and getting involved in Middle Eastern conflicts. These are the facts. It's perpetuated. 95% of the things that Bernie was speaking about in that speech and the things that I discussed here in this video came from us. The problems were caused by us. Not by people having open borders, but because the United States has consistently, over the course of several decades, failed to respect the sovereignty of other nations, to respect the leadership in the government of other nations. They failed to respect the self-determination of the people of other nations. People don't want to leave their home. They don't want to leave their families. They don't want to leave their culture. They don't want to leave their language. They don't want to leave their traditions. But they have to go somewhere. And the only place that they know is safe from American imperialism are those who participate openly and actively in American imperialism. You're damn right. What's safer? Being in front of the barrel of the gun or being behind it? At least when you're behind the barrel of the gun, if you're an activist, you can at least do something to stop yourself from getting shot or stop the person from shooting. Whether it's yelling in their ear, whether. But if you're on the other side of the barrel of a gun, oh, they can take you out much quicker. Promise you. So, of course, where else would you go? It's like being friends with the bully in school. Fortunately enough, I was never bullied. However, there are people who are, I don't want to say weak-minded, because that's kind of rude, but they're insecure about their ability to defend themselves. They end up becoming friends with the bullies and becoming usually verbal bullies themselves, sometimes physical bullies. But they know what the bully is doing is wrong, but they also know there's a good chance that if I don't stand behind this man, I'm going to be on the other end of an ass whooping. So I'm just going to chill over here. I don't even have to necessarily cheer him on, but I do want to not be punched in the throat. That's all I'm asking for. So that's what Bernie is advocating for. Why don't we do comprehensive immigration reform? Let people come in the right way, right? Why don't we stop allowing these quote unquote quagmires to displace people, where we are then faced with the question, should we have open borders? No, and I don't think they should have open borders either. And I think that everyone should respect the sovereignty of everyone else's borders. I don't think that's a difficult thing to ask for. However, it is a difficult thing to accomplish when the United States keeps constantly violating everyone else's sovereignty. So the conversations become open borders, refugees, open borders. How about stop creating wars? Stop bombing countries? Stop destroying economies? Stop enacting sanctions? When are we going to start having those conversations? Shout out to Tulsi Gabbard, where she said on our show and during her interview, which was brilliant. Couldn't have put it better myself. Sanctions never hurt the powerful. They only hurt the people. And these are the reverberating effects of things like sanctions. Bernie understands that. And Bernie has done a great job in his policy advocacy to make sure that these type of situations do not continue to persist in the future, where we have to decide whether or not we want open borders. No, how about we give genuine, comprehensive immigration reform? How about we stop bombing countries? How about we stop with the sanctions? So I agree with Bernie 100%, but I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Leave a like and a comment below. And remember, more than anything else, people, find your balance. Peace. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. Don't forget to join us on Roku and catch our Roku exclusives. Also, help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and JustNForm.com. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.